Good morning, everybody. February 13th, 2018, 6:27 a.m. Sorry, it's been a few days. I had to do some traveling, but I'm back home. I'm somewhat sick, if those of you can't tell. I feel fine, but my head's just really stuffy. So, those of you who always give me those remedies down below, I wouldn't mind some for today in this video. Anyway, we are following Cyclone Gita, which has just like basically ravished the island of Tonga and the surrounding islands. In fact, before I even go further, let's look at what we have here. I had a picture pulled up of the wind scale. Anyway, we're talking about 115 kilometers, which is equivalent to a Category 4, I believe, or Category 3 hurricane. So this thing is very powerful. We'll take a look at it on Tropical Tidbits first. Let me back up. Let's see how it formed, actually. So it formed a little bit. It does a double loop. You can see the pattern's going to come down this way, and then it wants to always flow down right towards New Zealand. So I feel like New Zealand is the next in line that may have to deal with this thing. By the time these storms get to New Zealand, though, I want you guys to remember the water gets cooler here. So these storms usually tend to widen out. You can see a low pressure here that didn't develop. We do have two other invests actually to the north side of Australia, which seem to want to ride the coast into the Indian Ocean. Those will be for another video, but because this did so much damage to Tonga, I feel like it's fair to acknowledge and then also talk to the people in New Caledonia, which this thing may continue to head. If you notice the date here, today's the 13th. So today is what they expect this thing to do is this movement here. Just this back and forth I'm doing. It's going to move underneath Tonga, I believe, or past over Tonga, and now it's heading in a western direction towards New Caledonia, but it wants to dip down before it clips that edge. You can see how close it gets. There will be surf and wind issues for sure to the south end of New Caledonia if this is the case, but this thing may stay in a western direction and it may clip, actually, it may make contact with the land there in the south. So these people really, really need to be aware of this storm, and by the time it gets here, it wants to be stronger. So let's pull up these spaghetti plots. You can see most of the plots have this thing dipping right underneath New Caledonia and then hooking right into New Zealand again, just like we were talking about with that previous cyclone, which name escapes me at the moment. Sorry guys, my head is so stuffed up. I also brought up Tropical Tidbits. They are on a similar pattern as far as the GFS goes. They believe this thing is going to get bigger as it travels after it made a contact with Tonga heading towards New Caledonia. You can see the wind, no matter what, is going to affect New Caledonia. So this may not be a direct hit, but this will affect the bottom half of this island for sure. So those of you who live there, those of you that watch my channel from the area, please be prepared. And then as it gets into the cooler waters, you start to see it expand. It does get a bit weaker, but when we're dealing with a storm this size, guys, this storm is bigger than the island of New Zealand itself. Islands, I should say. And then we're talking by the 20th, between the 18th and the 20th, this thing is going to hit New Zealand. And depending on the wind speeds, is going to depend all on the surf issues. It's going to depend on the flooding. It's going to depend on the wind damage. If you guys remember, again, the name escapes me, that cyclone we talked about, that I had people from New Zealand down in the comment section telling me, oh, we want this, we need this, because it was so hot out in the rain and everything, and no one was really worried about it. And it ended up being a pretty big storm. And then I had some people come back and tell me, they're like, wow. They're like, yeah, we were not expecting that. And again, it's not because you don't see this tight formation. Just because it's not this when it hits land, that does not mean anything. When this thing expands, when it hits the cooler water, it still has its clockwise rotation because we are in the southern hemisphere. If you guys remember, southern hemisphere cyclones and typhoons spin clockwise because of the spin of the earth, and then during hurricane season for the Atlantic Ocean they spin counterclockwise because we're in the northern hemisphere. So if you want to see where Tonga is, you can clearly see Tonga is in the southern hemisphere, which is why this is considered a cyclone. So this thing basically, long story short, a lot of volcanoes here. Wow, I didn't realize that. That's crazy. This whole area is just volcanoes. So this thing formed about right around this area, and then it came down and went right over Tonga, and now they're saying that this might be the strongest storm that ever hit Tonga. Watch as the biggest storm ever to hit Tonga tears over the tiny island nation. So they definitely had some significant damage. I remember watching some videos yesterday on my phone when I was taking stops to get gas and whatnot on my way home, and just seeing what this thing did. And it's no joke. This thing, and it's expected to get bigger. So we're talking category 4, category 5 in comparison to a hurricane in the Atlantic Ocean. But you can see right here, the worst part is even right next to the eye of these storms. Like if you have the eye go over you, that's actually a little bit of a break. You might actually see blue sky for about a half hour if you're in the middle of a hurricane or a cyclone or a typhoon. But because this island is so small, it really just got the worst brunt of this thing. And those winds that extend about 75 to 100 miles outside the eye are always the worst. And you can see here, forecasters say storm could strengthen to category 5 as it moves towards Fiji and could hit the southern Lau Islands. Gusts as high as 295 kilometers per hour. That's 183 miles an hour, guys. That is no joke at all. There's some damage pictures here that at Solomon Salvino posted on Twitter. Go thank him for those pictures if you feel the need. You can see there's flooding, there's damage everywhere. Tiny little island of Tonga. So that's where we're at right now, guys. If you want, I will move forward here and show you what the predicted path of this thing is. And it looks like it's going to go right under New Caledonia, and then it's going to do its little swing right into New Zealand. And it looks like it wants to split these two areas. So even the coastlines in between these two areas of New Zealand need to be on watch, because that's exactly where this thing is going right now. And just because it's not a cyclone per se, maybe they might downgrade it to a some sort of tropical depression, which is what would be equivalent to the Atlantic hurricane season. This is no joke, and it's going to hit very hard. So that's what you have to watch out for, at least in the South Pacific right now. There are other invests that will be for another video. Again, here is Ventu Sky. I'll run through, and they are basically agreeing on it. So Ventu Sky, Tropical Tidbits, and the professional meteorologists all agree that this thing is going to do a little bit of a swoop and then head right down towards New Zealand after basically destroying the island of Tonga, which is horrible. I will get some more info on that, and I will post updates as far as how they're doing there. But that's all I have for you for this morning, guys. Sorry it took me a couple days to get a video out. Been doing some traveling. I got some cool pictures for you, but back to our daily updates as usual. Again, 6:35 a.m., February 13th, 2018. I hope you all have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye.